a time of war. My name is Nicholas No. I'm a senior fellow with Refugees International, which is an American-based advocacy, rights, and reporting organization. We're not an operational INGO. And I am a senior fellow with RI. And for the last several years, one of my roles has been to support the Alliance of Ukrainian CSOs and their efforts to work on localization and power shifting. So that's my background. Just a few notes about this session. It will be in English. I ask everyone to please speak slowly and clearly. We have people in multiple languages that are going to be trying their best to follow. A few other things is I'm going to drop the bios for our speakers into the chat for people that want to go deeper in, so that we have a lot of time for their remarks, and also so that we have at least 30-35 minutes for Q&A. Just a few things to frame is, and in the preparation for this session, we've had a lot of discussions, but I think two things in mind for me personally, and as someone that has been in Ukraine for the last several years after this full-scale invasion by Russia, and to see some of the progress and some of the barriers to localization, to shifting power from international responders to Ukrainian responders, shifting decision-making, funding, influence, etc. This has been a huge issue about training, capacity strengthening, capacity investments. And I think one of the things that we've seen in Ukraine and elsewhere has been a tension between how much is invested in truly building on existing Ukrainian capacity, learning from that capacity, and also really investing over time to make sure that Ukrainian responders lead and take over the humanitarian response in their own country. And I think that a number of our speakers today are going to go deeply into that. A second issue is to what degree Ukrainian organizations, some of whom are the leading organizations and responders in the country on the panel today, to what extent over these years have they built up an incredible array of training capacity, of capacity strengthening ability, and resources to grow civil society in their own country at large. And I think that that's a really impressive story, and one that's extremely important for understanding the way forward for the sector as a whole. So I will stop at that. Again, I'm going to paste in our 7 speakers' bios right now into the chat. If everyone can make sure that they are on mute too, please, that would be appreciated. I do not have control, I think, of muting people. So Ola, I'm going to send it over to you we're giving everyone about 5 minutes for prepared remarks. Ola from the Alliance of Ukrainian CSOs, thank you very much for joining us. So please kick us off.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Nicholas, and thank you to all colleagues for being here today. For us, it's really important. As the Alliance of Ukrainian Civil Society Organization, we see this panel as a strategic conversation about rethinking how learning functions in a prolonged crisis. In autumn 2024, during our first operational planning session as a consolidated alliance, we identified the ecosystem approach to humanitarian learning as one of our core priorities. This decision came directly from our members' experience over the past years. Between 2022 and 2024, Ukrainian humanitarian professionals participated in a large number of training initiatives. The sector was active, engaged, and highly motivated. But what became clearly visible was fragmentation. Many programs operated as separate initiatives with limited integration into broader professional pathways. And this matter for localization. Localization is about professional autonomy and not only funding. And that autonomy requires structured pathways, leadership development, and systems that retain and transfer knowledge. This is why in 2025, through our working group on leadership and capacity building, we began working on a prototype of a national humanitarian learning ecosystem. Importantly, our intention was not to create parallel structures or duplicate existing courses, because Ukraine already has many strong learning initiatives. Our goal is to align and connect what already exists, bringing civil society organization, academic partners, and international actors into shared framework. An ecosystem approach for us means structured levels of learning from foundational to practitioner to leadership, hybrid formats combining online accessibility, in-person engagement, and mentoring support, and a knowledge cycle linking practice and learning. When we began developing this prototype, we started with a simple question to humanitarian professionals: what is missing? The answers were consistent: leadership level programs, mentoring, follow-up, and certification. The leadership and advocacy program developed with the Leadership Academy, Humanitarian Leadership Academy, and Ukrainian Catholic University emerged directly from this conversation. It is not the ecosystem itself, it is one building block within a longer pathway. Our ambition is systemic coherence, not expansion for its own sake, because someone talking because
actually let me just, I think there are two people that I see that have their mics on, and I don't want to embarrass anyone, but just in the interest of now I think everyone is muted. Perfect. I think we're good. Ola, over to you. Sorry, Denise, I think you're not muted. I apologize. I could be wrong. Denise Allen? Yes, thank you very much. Okay, Ola, over to you.
Thank you. I just repeat the last couple sentences. So our ambition is systemic coherence, not expansion for its own sake, because in a prolonged war, learning cannot be treated as a side initiative. It becomes part of the infrastructure that sustains the sector and makes localization real. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will now turn it over to Solomia, please, from Ukraine Catholic University. Solomia, the floor is yours.
Dear colleagues, good morning. It is very shining weather today. It is a big honor to present our work during the Humanitarian Network and Partnerships Week. Thank you very much, Alliance and of Ukrainian CSOs for the invitation, and thank you, Nicholas, for moderating this session. As was already mentioned, I am leading the Institute of Leadership and Management, what is the structural department of Ukrainian Catholic University that is situated in Lviv. For the past 15 years, our institute has been working to strengthen civil society through professional education and for nonprofit leaders and managers. Our core program is a Master in Nonprofit Management. Our students are executive directors and managers who already lead their organization. And they are making difficult decisions every day in very unstable conditions. Working with them, we clearly see how management is changing during a long-term war. Many classical models were developed for more stable environment, but Ukrainian organizations operate in very unstable situation every day. So that models and expert models do not work anymore. There are no ready-made answers, and leaders must understand the context, then take responsibility, probe, sense, and respond. At our faculty, we often say that Ukraine today is a laboratory under the open sky, and every day new management practices are being created. New decisions are tested in real time, but if this experience is not documented, analyzed, and integrated into learning programs, it remains individual, and it can easily be lost. That is why, for us, education is not only about teaching theory, it's also about creating space for reflection. We analyze real cases from our graduates, we connect theory with the Ukrainian context, and we learn together. And this brings us to an idea that ecosystem has to be created. If the world is entering in a period of long-term uncertainty, humanitarian learning cannot remain fragmented, as Olha mentioned. We need systems that collect experience, reflect on it, and pass it forward. So let me say a few words about our pilot course on leadership and advocacy in the humanitarian sphere, which we are running together with Alliance of Ukrainian CSOs and Humanitarian Leadership Academy. Actually, it is really a good example of how collaboration can work in practice. We have been working together from the initial idea to the implementation of the program, which is still ongoing. The course was initiated as an experiment to explore how we can develop a learning ecosystem together. The Alliance brought a deep understanding of needs of civil society organizations. What are the gaps in the learning system? And HLA contributed many years of experience in advocacy within the humanitarian sector. And our institute provides the academic framework and learning methodology. This combination of perspectives helped us create a program that connects theory and field experience. I would say that this collaboration has been quite fruitful so far. 30 participants joined the program. All of them are already active in advocacy and have experience working in the humanitarian or civil society sector. For us, it is important to bring together people who are ready to represent their interest of their organization both on the national and international level. So developing this course, we confirm once again that if Ukraine is a laboratory of leadership in uncertainty, then we need to invest not only in the separate training programs, but also in knowledge infrastructure, in research, in cases, in partnership, and this international dialogue. So we believe that only through collaboration and systemic thinking, we can support strong and professional leadership in complex contexts. Thank you, Nicholas, and thank you, colleagues and partners, for this experience.
Thank you very much. We will now go over to Hussein at the Humanitarian Leadership Academy. That is also one of the main partners on the program that Solomia and Ola have described. So Hussein, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Nicola. Thanks to my colleagues, Ola and Solomia. My name is Hussein Arslan. I am the senior lead for the Humanitarian Leadership Academy. It's called HLA. Good morning, good afternoon for everyone, wherever you are based. When we speak actually about humanitarian capacity strengthening, we often speak in numbers, how many trainings delivered, how many participants attended, how many certificates issued. But to be honest, we must ask ourselves, has this approach truly strengthened our national humanitarian system, and what benefits that my organization has gained out of these trainings? In HLA, we believe that the real shift we need is not from one training package to another. It's more to shift from fragmented trainings event to more strengthening the national eco-learning system. So for years, actually, the capacity building has been more supply-driven. It's different actors came with different toolkits, different priorities, different agenda, and different reporting frameworks. So local organizations attend multiple workshops, trainings. In every context, we see a lot of trainings are being announced, and we send our staff to attend. and often repeating the same content without like structured pathway for growth. So knowledge remains like individual, not institutional. So once it's, like staff leave and we have like turnover, the learning leaves with them, right? So in HLA, actually, we intentionally like shift, look more to shifting the mindset. So where we look for more like delivery to system building. And here we more like invest in the leadership component for strengthening local organizations so that they have the decision making, they have like more influence on the system, and they also build the architect of the structure for the organization. And this is where Solomia mentioned about the framework that we have like worked on developing our advocacy leadership program in Ukraine. So we also look to the convening because this area is very crucial to strengthen the system as a more collective action because we bring local organizations together to exchange learning and also strengthen coordinations among each other, because in humanitarian settings it's not competitive like to work in silo for local organizations, but it's more collective responsibilities because we are working to serve those who are most in needs, those who are suffering. And part of our like humanitarian principles is like to come and work together and share resources. And a lot of local organizations have like many resources and capacities exist. This is why they are on the ground and working, right? So here we believe also, leveraging on these local resources and capacities, it will be the foundation of knowledge and strengthening the response to reach like collective actions. So from the external control to national leadership. So this is more where local organizations and also to look for the infrastructure of their organizations to build more institutional learnings. So we believe also in learning must go beyond technical skills because previously we're like looking to deliver like trainings related to different thematic like in education, child protection, but these are important to strengthen the capacities of the technical program and the quality of our services, but also we need to consider more the sustainability of this learning. So this is why we start like to shift mind also on focusing more on the leadership, the governance, the accountability, the ethical decision making, where like organization can really be considering these areas of more investing to sustain also the operation of the organization. Especially, I meant like the humanitarian situation since last year with the fund cut and shortages in resources. Human resources are also affected. So that's why also investing in the governors and leadership, so it's very crucial to sustain the organizations. So I will stop here actually for the time limit and hand it over to you back, Nicholas.
Thank you, Hussein. I think there was a few seconds where you cut in and out, at least for me, but I think we got it. I would really encourage everyone, please, we have time for questions. We can get deeper into some of these issues. So please, after our last speaker, I'll open it up to the floor. So please feel free to ask questions and more details. I'll turn it over to Lyubov from Philanthropy in Ukraine, who I think one of the things that we had discussed in planning this is they have done a lot of work with a number of partners to understand from Ukrainian organizations how they view trainings and all of these capacity strengthening kind of efforts. So Lyubov, if you can give us a kind of, I think, overview of how you folks see this sector, that would be great. So thank you.
Yeah, hi everyone. Good to see you. My name is Lyubov. I'm the co-founder and program director of philanthropy in Ukraine. I will try to, in 3 or 4 minutes, briefly explain what we do and why, how it is connected to learning and capacity strengthening. So,
you know what, Lyubov, I'm going to say, because we're actually ahead of schedule right now, and this is, it's great to hear this. So feel free, you know, I'll cut in
5
after 5,
minutes.
but please, definitely 5. You can take a bit more. Okay, please, over to you.
Okay,
Sorry.
yeah. So Philanthropy in Ukraine is a digital platform that was supposed to build the trustworthy NGOs and CSOs in Ukraine. We do this by providing services of due diligence. So the organization comes to us, we do what we call verification process based on international standards. Then organization receives a certificate, and they got tiers from 1 to 4, where 1 is the lowest one, and 4 is the best achievement ever. And based on that, starting tier 2, organizations are listed on the platform, and then based on their capacity, on their scores and assessments, we might see what are the most common gaps and what are the problems or challenges that organizations face the most. And we try to build our operation as an ecosystem. So basically, when we see the level of organizational capacity, then we might provide some trainings or capacity strengthening activities to support the organization. And the thing is that we really love data, and we love build our programs based on data. So recently, the last year in October, we presented the research about capacity strengthening market in Ukraine. We tried to analyze what was open sourced. So if something was listed on any websites connected to nonprofit sector, we collected this information, and we received some really interesting and insightful results. So for example, during 6 months that we collected information, there were 151 opportunities. And may I ask you, do you think what was the most popular or the common one? It was fundraising. But the thing is that it was also among the most desirable, and when people were asked, what do you need more? The answer was also fundraising, which means the basic thing, there is a real gap in funding and sustainability in that matter. But I'm going to say that the market is crowded, but it's not full enough to meet all of the needs, because 59% of those organizations also said that they need more information, they need more trainings. And the thing is that there are real gaps by topic and by level. Both Ola and Solomia mentioned that leadership on this higher, CEOs, program, higher end program staff, they don't usually have the programs that might meet their needs, and this is the real gap. And the other one is that even though fundraising is important, but it's not the only topic that is required. Monitoring and evaluation, AI tools, some of the financial, like really narrow things connected to nonprofit work, and yeah, there are lots of opportunity, but not all of them are. Some of them are more shallow, and 35% of respondents mentioned that they were not happy with the level and quality of the programs that they were the part of. And another thing that I think is important to mention, and it will be interesting to discuss, was that usually donors or international partners made requirements for organizations to attend some of the mandatory trainings regarding specifically policies or safeguarding or something else. And there is the common ground where, I participated in the other training in this topic, so may I skip this one? No, you cannot. You have to do this. And it was mentioned repeatedly that it takes time and it takes effort, and you are not participating, involving in the process. You just go in there because you have to, not because you need this. And Also, I think that low engagement means low impact, and we have to deal with it at some point. A certification is also something that was mentioned several times, that skills and information that we would like to have, organizations would like to have, is important recognition of what they know and what they might use in the future. But even good, the better part of this research for me specifically was that people are tired of general information that can be Googled or found in any AI tool that are now available. They really want it to be tailored to their needs. So it means stepping back from the trainings to everyone, but trying to individualize information and resources that we provide to those partners in Ukraine. Another thing is that to implement knowledge that you gained during training, even though it could be good, you have to have resources. And 62% say that they cannot do this because they don't have enough people, funds, and other types of resources. Another 59% said that they are too busy with their ongoing programs and operations, so they cannot implement the new knowledge. But anyway, despite all of the challenges, NGOs, those respondents still mention that almost every training or workshop was somehow important and influenced their. So I think we just need to be more specific about how we do and how we deliver some of the learning opportunities, trying to specify for which audience it is. Only 19% of all of the trainings had description who might participate, who cannot, like having this target audience clear. And I guess for us, as for those one who are interested in this topic and would like to provide more information, we just need move away from one-off webinars toward a real cycle where the learning is then implemented. And I guess Natalia might add a lot of on top of that about capacity strengthening grants and so on, because they've been doing it for years. But yeah, we need more of that.
Thank you very much for that. We will go to Natalia now from Sara Yednania, who is also linked in the chat. I would also just say I put in the link to the full report from Philanthropy in Ukraine, which is, for this topic, I think is the heart of so much of the actual data of what Ukrainian organizations are saying, what donors are saying, what INGOs are saying, the whole ecosystem. So I would really encourage people to take a look at that and maybe even have some questions in the Q&A. So Natalia, over to you. Thank you very much for joining us. I think, in my view, my limited view, Sara Yednania has, just a huge amount of experience in this sector and the wider civil society sector in Ukraine. So this is really valuable for us to hear. So please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Nicholas. Good afternoon, distinguished guests, dear colleagues. Nicholas, I know you asked us to be brief, but I can't resist the temptation to start with remembering
Go ahead.
Remembering some stories back in February 2022. This is kind of trauma for all Ukrainians, and I'm not exception of this rule. Missiles were falling, millions of people were evacuating, train stations were overloaded with women and children, and the state was predominantly in shock. And many international donors and international organizations were also paralyzed. Some evacuated their staff, some froze funding decisions, some waited for headquarters approvals, or etc. But what shocked me at the most, some story. We urgently needed a generation. Actually, Solomia, maybe you remember, for Lviv railway station, because actually at Lviv, thousands and thousands of hundred people come back on those days. And we were asked from some donors institution about environmental compliance procedures, environmental approval for generators during bombardment. And we remember that bureaucracy that day was not neutral. It was cruelty. And while institutional system were trying to reconsider their risks, civil society actually was those who acted, who stepped in. And one more prominent example for Lviv organization, which is Zero Waste NGO, Lviv NGO Zero Waste, came to us and asked about compliant rules, not asking for compliant rule, but they asking for funding to buy thousands of disposal cups. Zero Waste asking for disposal cups because thousands of people and thousands of evacuees needed hot tea immediately. And it was not about sustainability policies. It was not about environmental rules for organization who has a mission. Zero Waste has a mission to fight for environment. But it was about human survival. It was about humanity. And that was only one example for thousands of Ukrainian civil society organizations that didn't wait. It moved, organized, adapted its work, and took responsibility. And why I'm talking about this? Because it's not exemption, it was pattern. And it was not the first time we saw that pattern. Back in COVID 2022, colleagues, let's remember that. International mechanisms slowed down or stopped, but grassroots organization and local civil society organization accelerated. Organized food delivery, medicine delivery for people with disabilities, with limited mobility, supported those who can take care of themselves, supported the medical system. They filled the gap. And they filled the gap again when the full-scale invasion started. And this last decade has shown us something consistent. When everything is stable, international institution and mechanism work well. But when something unexpected and extreme happens, local actors are the ones who respond first, who move fastest, and even going further. And it's not coincidence, as I say, it is a pattern, and it should shape how we design humanitarian architecture going forward. And this is where I want to challenge something. When we say today that Ukraine needs capacity building, we must ask ourselves who had capacity in those very first week and who didn't. But let's move from emotion to facts. According to the Civil Society Sustainability Index, Ukraine's civil society did not deteriorate during the full-scale invasion. On a scale where 1 is the highest, according to the methodology, 1 is the highest. Ukraine improved its score from 3.0 to 2.9 in 2024. This may sound small, but it is not. To this methodology, even 0.1 is significant, especially during the war. So this index proved that the sector did not shrink, it expanded. Thousands of volunteer groups institutionalized, the new organization registered, the existing one scaled up. In many areas, civil society was not supporting the system, but it was stabilizing it. And forgive me, colleagues, but I have to ask you a question. If your country faced the same level of stress with millions displaced, cities destroyed, infrastructure attacked daily, would your civil society improve its sustainability index? Because Ukraine did. And it happened because, not because training delivered on the February of 2022. It was because the whole ecosystem of capacity building was built long before the war and long before the COVID even. For years, capacity development followed one logic. Donors define the topic, donors select the trainer, organization attend. Luba just mentioned the old scheme of donor-driven capacity development. We at SRI reverse the whole logic. We invent the capacity development marketplace where civil society organization took the full responsibility on capacity development. The marketplace model is following. Civil society organization conducts self-assessment of their capacity level. They define their own development priorities. They choose by themselves providers, and they receive funding for services they selected, and they take full responsibility, as I mentioned. This is CSO-driven capacity development model. This is development for actors, not recipients. And this model proved its value not just internally. Organizations like UNHCR and Save the Children, thank you, worked with us on structured capacity development programs before the full-scale invasion and even during it. The marketplace served both newcomers navigating and advanced organizations scaling up complex operations. The same system, but different entry points. And we invested beyond in mentoring, for example, not one-time events, but long-term relationships structured accompanying over the months. And when the war began, those network already exists, already functioning. We built school on governments, fundraising, communication, strategic planning, online courses for newcomers, advanced program for mature organization. Our civil society development forums became the largest and the most expected events in the Ukrainian civil society sector, and the culture of continuous development were promoted. And something very, very important happened that is real when infrastructure matures. A new profession appeared. The organization development manager became a very popular profession in sector. And when new professional role emerged in the sector, something structural has changed. We also worked at the policy level, contributed to the national strategy for civil society development, supporting creation public funds for CSO, for example, youth funds, veterans funds, and cultural funds also, because infrastructure is not only services, it's policy, environment, legislation, public recognition, and it's all already set in Ukraine. And the most uncomfortable part of my speech, colleagues. After 2022, many international actors entered Ukraine very fast. Everyone was trying to respond, and in crisis system fall back on what they know the best: assessment, compliance, and capacity building programs. Sometimes this creates parallel structures. New programs launched without any mapping existing Ukrainian infrastructure, and something even more problematic happened. International consulting companies were hired to prepare local partners for direct funding. They delivered training, and then they assessed readiness, and they reported back to donors that local organizations were not ready for direct funding. And well, this might not be intentional, and I say that not to blame anyone in this room, but there is the structural conflict when your funding depends on proving that local actors are not ready. In that case, capacity building can become endless, and localization gets permanently delayed. I'm not trying to say that, okay, we are fully developed. We do admit that gap exists. Ukraine sector grew massively after 2022. New organization needs thousand new organization needs government structures, financial management, compliance knowledge, but the infrastructure to support them already exists inside Ukraine. And Jednania is not the only organization building infrastructure. Many prominent organizations are participating now our panel, and there are a lot of systemic actors across the country that build this ecosystem. Sector professionalized, developed standards, invested in continuous learning. Sector has its own think tanks, research, and even academia. So the question is not whether capacity is needed. The question is where we do invest, in parallel short-term programs run from our side, or in local ecosystems that have already proven under the fire, actually, that they work. And maybe this is time to make a whole shift of the conversation from other local actors are ready to how do we invest in what already works. Because when everything was burning on the February 2022, capacity was not something we needed to build. Capacity was something we needed to trust. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. All right, we're going to have a kind of field perspective from East SOS. one of the first responding organizations that I ever met in early 2022 in Dnipro. So please, we will turn it over to you. Anna, I think you're here. Yes. Hi, Anna.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for joining us. The floor is yours.
Thank you to my colleagues for the opportunity to share what we think and to discuss. Many of the reflections that I heard and your thoughts really reflect me and reflect what we're doing in our everyday working life. And you know, as all of us have a limitation of time, I would like to focus on several points from the perspective of a civil society organization who works directly in the field. We work directly in the frontline regions, on the occupied regions in Ukraine, so we are practitioners. So I will tell you about reality that we have and things that is very applied. So we operate in a context where learning is not theoretical, where capacity building is not theoretical. Learning is a matter of our effectiveness, effective of our work, and of course about our safety. So from our experience, learning and capacity building must operate on several interconnected levels, if we can say so, especially when we speak about the interim period when something great is already done, but the whole ecosystem is not yet settled down. So I'll tell you about experience and about lesson learned so that we have for this 12 years of working in the fields, and maybe they are really interesting for our discussion on this panel. So first, we always need to start from ourselves. At EastOS, every specialist, every member of our organization or worker, they have access to the individual learning opportunities. What does it mean? We allocate some internal funding, especially for team development. So everyone, any staff member, can demonstrate the relevance of a course or training he or she want to attend, and if this training is really relevant and will bring a practical benefit, this person can receive support, financial support. This approach maybe or it really isn't unique for the NGOs as well as another NGOs in Ukraine. However, what I want to emphasize in this, it's practical value, especially in a context that we are talking about, that we have now fragmented approach and we are discussing it. It can be seen as fragmented approach, but on the other hand, we can say that it is flexibility, because the context in the time of war is constantly changing. The skills that are required for each role really evolves. Therefore, learning cannot be static, and it must be flexible, but somehow it needs to be also on the individual levels of our workers and members of our teams. At the same time, of course, we also conduct and have some kind of team trainings that are critical for our team. For example, is the first aid, because we have our evacuation team, we have our mobile team who work on the front line, and we need to know how to give people and our beneficiaries first aid and first psychological aid, for example, especially when we are having our jobs and on the transit centers, for example. Also, we have our trainings on the how we can integrate the human rights principles in our everyday work, because all of us need to know what human rights are and how we can work with them on everyday basis, like a principle and values that we have in our organization, in our everyday roles that we have. And also from this first pillar that I want to emphasize, that we have also such kind of trainings with our partners. For example, it can be in Ukraine, our educational human rights center in Chernihiv, and also, for example, in Germany, we have our partner and donor Kurva Vustrov, and they have a perfect training center, and our specialists can twice a year go and to have such kind of to gain new knowledge in the project management, for example, or maybe it can also be about peace building practices, such kind of learning opportunities. But what is very important for us, especially on in this example of the Kurva Vustrov Training Center, is that we are equal partners. We share, we not only learn. Even if the Kuru is our donor, we are partners in this understanding that we have a practical side of what we are doing. We are organizations that implement changes on everyday basis in the front line and occupied and borders regions. The second level that I want to discuss is how we can transfer knowledge and experience that we have in our organization to other NGOs in Ukraine and to our international partners. For example, last year we implemented a pilot project that supported 10 young NGOs in Ukraine. The program includes some components, for example, a series of webinars with a partnership with Ukrainian Catholic University, human rights training at the Human Rights Educational House in Chernihiv, a study visit to Denmark, mentor support. Also, we gave to them a financial support, and we make the training or the strategic building for them. And this project demonstrates how impactful combined learning and institutional support can be for them, especially in a time when we had that situation with USAID fundings. However, it also reveals some limitation of a purely project-based approach. As without continuing funding, our ability to scale or sustain this support to these organizations that participated significantly decreased. So this raised important questions about long-term strategic stability and systemic capacity building. At the same time, what was the plus of this project is about flexibility, because together with our Danish partners who give us opportunity to make this project in real life, we were able to adjust training models and content after implementation began, responding to the actual needs of our selected NGOs. Unfortunately, many donors are hesitant to allow such flexibility. Funding proposals often require detailed like preparation for risk minimization, and it's understandable, but flexibility, it is not a choice. It's something we need to have to make these capacity building trainings better based on the real needs of the organization that are included in this project. And the third and the last aspect I want to highlight, it's about broader educational philosophy that we have in our organization, especially in my educational team of our foundation. I always say that we need to focus our trainings and everything we have in a field of the capacity building on three core principles: is flexibility, as I said before, design thinking or human-centered design, if you want, especially in project management trainings, and providing tools rather than the ready-made solutions and templates. For example, we made such kind of events that called boot camps. It can be accelerators if you want, where participants learn and at the same time they develop their own project ideas. These ideas may later be receive support, for example, but only if they are grounded on the researches, on the real needs, on the needs assessments that they made before this bootcamp. In this way, we are not only teaching how to write proposal, for example, or how to do something with a ready template. We are teaching analysis. We are teaching them how to monitor the needs of their beneficiaries, of their villages, of their cities. We are strengthening their strategic thinking, but that we are discussing how to base our interventions on the real needs. So to conclude, I want to say that I think that the new learning system that we want to implement and we want to be part of need to be based on the few central points: its flexibility, individual and collective approach at the same time, and transferring knowledge and experience of Ukrainian NGOs, actors among each other and among our international partners. Because the ecosystem that will be settled down, and I believe in it, need to allow local leaders not only to participate, but to shape it, because we are practitioners, and everything that is about trainings, new knowledge, capacity building is crucial for our safety, our efficiency, and the work that we are doing.
Anna, thank you very much. I'm going to turn it over to our last but certainly not least speaker, Tracy from the Center for Disaster Philanthropy. CDP has a lot of grant-making experience in Ukraine and around the world, as well as in this specific sector that we're talking about. So thank you very much, Tracy. And also CDP has supported the Alliance and RI and UCU in the training program that's ongoing right now. So Tracy, over to you. The floor is yours. And then we'll have about 20 minutes for Q&A.
Thank you. I take my role as the last speaker before questions very seriously, so I promise to really drag it out. Thanks, everybody. It's really a pleasure to be with you all today. As Nicholas mentioned, the Center for Disaster Philanthropy is really proud to support this important work and to be included in the conversation. At CDP, our mandate is to mobilize philanthropy to support disaster recovery with a focus on medium and longer term recovery, equitable recovery. Recovery is not equitable or sustainable if it's externally designed, externally led, or dependent on temporary surge capacity. A systemic approach is required, one that shifts power, resources, and decision-making closer to affected communities, which is where it should start in the first place. I think others have kind of mentioned how those shifts happen so quickly away from the true decision makers when emergencies happen. This approach strengthens institutions that will remain long after international attention shifts and funding declines. And sadly, we are all too aware that that can happen very quickly and in ways that push us away from sustainability. Localization cannot simply be achieved by transferring funds. It requires durable leadership, institutional capacity, and professional pathways for humanitarian leaders in their own countries. In this situation, that is exactly why supporting Ukrainian-led humanitarian initiatives like this one was so important to CDP, and we believe it should be important to everyone, to others as well in the humanitarian community. First, this initiative shifts power to local actors by investing in Ukrainian humanitarian professionals, not just implementers, but as strategists, coordinators, and system leaders. By training leaders in the areas that are self-identified and asked for, expertise is uplifted and institutionalized in Ukraine based on Ukrainian expertise. It reduces reliance on external surge models and builds a cadre of professionals who understand cultural, political, geographic realities of their communities in ways that others just couldn't. It's not their lived reality. Second, it builds durable capacity before shocks hit. Basing such an initiative in a university provides stable infrastructure, ongoing training, access to systems, research, certification. Embedding humanitarian leadership development within a university structure creates career pathways for community responders and professionalizes and better professionalizes or increases the professionalization of the sector in a way that's determined by Ukrainian voices. Investing upstream in this way reduces long-term disaster costs and improves response quality. It also moves us from reactive response to a resilient architecture. Third, this approach advances equity and community-led recovery. At CDP, we prioritize, we prioritize funding. We prioritize funding that addresses systemic inequalities and supports historically marginalized populations. A locally rooted leadership program ensures that those designing recovery efforts reflects the lived experience of communities most affected. It enables culturally competent models of response and creates space for diverse voices within Ukrainian civil society. In this example, but what I'll get to later is that we would love to be able to support models like this, similar, but in other places that can adapt it to meet their needs as well. When leadership reflects lived experience, recovery is more inclusive, more legitimate, and ultimately more effective. Fourth, this work creates scalable and replicable models. A university-based humanitarian leadership program can develop curricula, toolkits, frameworks, and creates a sustainable framework that allows for this to continue beyond short program times. We consider our ability to fund with philanthropic dollars in this context catalytic, not just funding services, but building systems that can scale and endure beyond a grant cycle. This catalytic effect is something that CDP has been able to support through similar investments, along with HLA and other organizations in other contexts as well, in Sudan, Ethiopia, Turkey, Syria, DRC, and Ukraine included in that. But we see this work as the next step in lifting up locally like capacity and creating a model for learning. And frankly, I see it as an opportunity to challenge other donors to look at how they can best approach supporting sustainable learning initiatives. Finally, this model strengthens cross-sector collaboration. It sits at an intersection of all the various institutions that are and organizations that are on this call today, and we really see that as an important way for funders to strengthen civil society and uphold the important role that civil society plays. By linking academic research with frontline organizations, the broader coordination ecosystem is strengthened, and that reinforces nationally anchored leadership. At CDP, our principles include community-led approaches, localization, equity, capacity strengthening, and trust. And we believe that this example and this incredible work is a great example of the integration of all of the parts of civil society and academic partnership and professional standards that provides a model that could be a reference point for training and education of humanitarians globally. Equitable recovery and systemic change require intentional investment, even when managing short-term relief and response. And we heard a lot of examples today of what happens in emergency moments that can really kind of tamp down the ability to respond. But we have to have that mindset of recovery in our heads, even at the beginning. And that's not easy to do. It's extremely hard. It requires patience, trust, and flexibility, as others have mentioned. And that's the only way to ensure that humanitarian response is effective and truly serving the people that it's meant to serve. And it stops us from building a system repeatedly over from scratch or applying a framework over a system that may not actually work. All the work that goes into creating this space represents an investment in people, institutions, and the long-term resilience of Ukrainian civil society. If we are serious about localization, not just as a policy statement, then supporting initiatives like this is essential. It is how we move from projects to systems and into resilience, and from temporary assistance to enduring capacity. We are just really proud to have been able to be a part of this initiative in some way, and I'm really grateful to be a part of this space today, and I look forward to continuing the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have, I think, about 15 minutes. Ola, if I'm correct, there was some differences, but we should go to 12:15 Kyiv time. And I see everyone has put their mute on. Thank you very much. We have about 50 people in the room. I do want to take questions, so please do raise your hand if you would like to ask some questions. I want to just put out to our speakers before, if I don't see any questions. And please, of our speakers, feel free to raise your hand if you'd like to respond. But I want to ask the big picture question. We've heard some criticisms about what has transpired these last few years when it comes to our core topic today, right? Our bit narrow topic that I'd like us to laser in on in the last 15 minutes, which is about training, capacity strengthening, investments in the Ukrainian CSO sector broadly, and especially humanitarian responders. So if we laser in on that, the title was suggesting that there is or has been some fragmentation and that that's not good, and that some kind of a national humanitarian learning training ecosystem is where we want to go. And what I want to ask our speakers, and again, feel free to answer any part of this, but where do you want to see this specific sector that we're talking about today? Where does it need to go? Where should it go? Does it mean, for example, UCU, Ukraine Catholic University, as I understand it, is one of the only educational institutions offering a kind of certificate training program in the institutionalized educational setting in the whole country? Does that mean there needs to be more such programs rooted in Ukrainian educational institutions? Does it mean that there needs to be more? Mr. Wang, I believe, has, yes, Mr. Wang. Oh no, Mr. Wang, sorry, you're not on mute. Mr. Wang, thank you. Ah, that worked.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I feel bad because I don't know how to mute people. So anyway, so the first one is about educational programs. Do there need to be more institutionalized in Ukrainian institutions, especially higher education? Does there need to be more direct donor or otherwise private philanthropy support or private sector support that is going to Ukrainian institutions and organizations that are at the forefront of this sector? Does there need to be, as it certainly seems Ukrainian CSOs say, more direct investment in Ukrainian CSOs who get training, who get a capacity strengthening program, but then don't have the funds to actually build their institutional capacity? That seems like a key area. And then a last thing is, which I think goes to the deeper question of what you all want to see done better for this sector. Does there need to be more coordination and mapping to reduce fragmentation? Who does that? How does that get done? Is there a government role? Is centralization where we're going? And is that a good thing necessarily? So I throw out all of those questions, which is to say, you know, Natalia, maybe you have a thought. Tracy, Ola, Lyubov, our other speakers, please feel free to raise your hand and intervene on any one of those questions. What is to be done? So Hussein, please, over to you.
Thank you, Nicholas. Actually, it's a very deep question, and I just wanted to flag, based also on my individual experience working in different contexts like Syria, Afghanistan, Sudan, a lot of work done with local organizations. Basically, the capacity strengthening for local organizations does not need to be necessarily like trainings, whether it's like a donor organization or INGOs or UN agencies, whatever like stakeholders to come with the training. So it's not necessarily to be the capacity strengthening opportunity for the organization. What I mean is like local organizations need also to shift mindset and look for how we want to increase our capacities in the ground, because they already, as I mentioned, like they already have capacities and to certain level that they have human resource with experience, with work experience, and also with academic experience. But it's more about how we can work more into the local resources, because now donors are also very strict with funding due to the limitation of fund. The same for like NGOs and different academias. So we are talking about also a context where there is limited financial resources. So what we intend to do is like to look for sharing knowledge and learning as peer-to-peer, where local organizations can come to work together on, for example, like doing placements, sharing resources and tools and experiences, working together jointly in a project like, for example, designing projects and interventions and sharing resources. So this is where they can look for really jointly efforts where it can leverage on their capacities and also position their organizations in a stronger a place to respond and show more like effectiveness in the response. So as Natalia mentioned, local organizations, they are the first responders within the 24 hours of any crisis. So they don't need like to wait to get like Save the Children or whatever NGOs like to come to deliver training for them to how they can respond within this crisis. So they already like on the ground, they have the staff, the resources. So the point is like they need to shift the mindset on how we can leverage more on the existing resources. Yes, they need like support. They need like to convene. They need like stakeholders with let's say the capacities from the surge or from the financial perspectives to come and enable them. So we are like in a position as donors or NGOs, those who come with resources, they need more to play as enablers, not as directors, where they can like direct what they need to do as locals. So this is where it can bring more added value to local organizations. So I just wanted to flag on this area. Thank you.
Is there any other thoughts and questions? Yeah, Lyubov, please.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to flag on three main things that I noticed important to emphasize. So the first one is that all the programs should be driven by need, not by donor vision or how it's nice to be. The second one is that, to be honest, I don't see the fundamental difference between how business operates and how NGO sector operates, besides that we do not produce income. We produce social impact, which is way more hard to measure and so on. But when it comes to funding, it's always about, can you do this with less resources, less people, less support, but please scale up. We believe in you. We are driven by the mission. Go on. We do not want this. We do not need, you cannot create something from the deficit. It's just impossible. You cannot grow if you're stuck in the position where you're always limited. It can work on the short term, but not in the marathon we're all running. And the third one is that requirements, and including capacity strengthening requirements, should be proportionate to what is offered. You cannot just create it from nothing. I believe that so many things might be done differently if we start talking to people. And the last thing that I don't have it really well formulated, but I'll try. Sometimes I have a feeling that the more experience international experts have, it's harder for them to learn how to work with the local context. You start comparing, you start doing something else, but it might be different. Trust is what is like built on mutual basis, and sometimes it's important to listen before you propose something. You're muted, Nicholas.
My mistake, excuse me. And two questions in the chat, a bit important to our topic, but about the UN cluster system and trainings through that modality in terms of the international, national engagement. And then a question also, which is a big question about humanitarian principles. I'll let people answer if they want in the chat. But please, any other comments on the wider question? Solomia, would you like? Yeah, Natalie, please.
Yeah, I wanted to answer actually the previous question, if I may. I wanted to talk about the spheres of further developments of our ecosystem and about the approaches and about how a whole system. Those three brief points from me. First, what we see from our experience, that research capacity must become a core investment for many other actors and for many funding donors, organizations, and those who are acting in influencers on those market, let's say in that way. Because our own research showed that while many civil society organizations collect information, much more less organization can develop or feel confident in research design and analysis, conducting analysis. And this gap is not technical, it's actually political, because without strong analytical capacity, civil society cannot shape the policy. It can only react it. So our first point is about ecosystem that must invest in data literacy, research design skill, analytical teams, and evidence-based advocacy. Second one is about talking about the approaches that are using in this development ecosystem, that shifting support mechanism from project-based to institutional-based or mission-driven based, because war showed very clearly that organization with strong internal system, only those survived. And if funding remains project-driven only, the civil society organization cannot survive. The mission-driven institutional support is multi-year funding, costs, core costs coverage, investment in actually capacity building, leadership, governments, you name it, and support for strategic development. So shifting from project-based to institutional or core support or mission-driven support, you name it. And third, what we see from our experience, we already have such type of experience preparing and mentoring civil society organization that want to become capacity development service provider, because they have a lot of experience and everything they need, a little push to transfer this methodology, to transfer this knowledge, to transfer this experience to another civil society, peer-to-peer education, peer-to-peer exchanging, that's work better always and usual. And this is where this ecosystem must focus from our perspective of view, not funding only capacity services, capacity development services, preparing local organization to operate as providers, and maybe the last one but not least, do not duplicate infrastructure that already exists. Thank you.
That was very clear and compelling. Thank you. Ola, did you had your hand raised before? Did you want to make a comment here in the last 2 minutes, please?
Yes, it will be a very short comment from the Secretariat of Alliance, because our mission, we want to advocate for this vision, and we shouldn't forget about a technical side, and what Natalia mentioned, we shouldn't duplicate what we already have, and now we are focusing on our advocacy activities, and we are trying to do this mapping and share our vision how it should be, but we want to have strong connection with academia and different stakeholders. It's our mission from Alliance, but we shouldn't forget about a lot of technical, who will be holder of this ecosystem. It's really important, and we are trying to find the right solution, and of course it should be based on our experience that our Alliance member had. So thank you for this discussion. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, Nicholas.
Thank you, Ola. Anna, please, we're just in our last minute or so, so just 30, 60 seconds to Anna, and then I'll go to Solomia, please. Anna.
I will be very briefly. I want to say that from the side of the NGOs and foundation, we need to remember that we need to be very proactive. You know, we don't need to just wait for this intermediate period when everything will be settled down, that someone will do it for us. We need to be not in competitions. We need to be partners to share and to do something on our own, and then to share this experience. And that is what Alliance do also. They try to motivate us to be proactive and not to just sit and think that everything will be done from donor side or for international like NGOs for us. Yeah, it's all from me.
Very good point. Thank you. Yes. Solomia, please, the last word I think is going to be yours, Solomia.
Thank you, Nicholas. And I want to continue with what Natalia mentioned about researchers. So here in Ukraine, we see that our NGO sector is really very experienced now, and we need to collect the data that we already have and our experience of Ukrainian CSOs, and we need this systemic approach for working with CSO organization. As I represent academia, university, I feel a lot of responsibility in this way. But I also understand that we only want in Ukraine institution, small one institution, work on the university level in this field. And as the Alliance mission is to coordinate and communicate with different stakeholders in Ukrainian CSO sector, it's very important. The communication is very important thing in this, not to duplicating, not to inventing new things, but working together on our best sides to improve the situation in Ukraine, and really support for such systemic things from donors. It will be very valuable for developing ecosystem infrastructure in Ukraine.
Lamia, thank you very much. And thank you to all of our 7 speakers, and also Ola and the Alliance for helping to really organize this panel during Humanitarian Network and Partnerships Week. I think we're going to be on several other Zooms in the coming days, and today and then next week as well. So you'll see some of these squares throughout these next 10 days, I hope. I would also just encourage, I'm going to leave this open for a minute or so. If any of our speakers would like to share their email, that would be great. Or if anyone in the audience would like to share their email, please feel free. I'll leave it open. I had wanted to close with a question and discussion about if this awful war ends soon, as I'm sure we all hope, to what extent Ukrainian civil society is ready, willing, and able for recovery and reconstruction. But I sense a lot of confidence about where the sector is going, and in a bleak world, this is something that should give us some hope. So thank you all for your work and your organization's work, all of you, and in supporting the work, this important work that I know is only going to grow no matter what happens. So thank you. I will close in about 30 seconds, but please thank you all to everyone that joined us and to our speakers as well. And oh yes, the government question, that was the biggest one. Yes, absolutely. We need another panel. And I'm sure the Alliance and Yednania is going to be organizing a lot more sessions. I know Yednania has a funding call now, I think, out for Ukrainian civil society, for capacity strengthening, etc. So the work goes on. All right, thank you all very much, and enjoy the rest of the sessions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.